Welcome to the Adoption Lounge. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Katie. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Again, hopefully.
We were just talking about what we were going to talk about today, and we really want to talk about Kelsey Ballerini, and I think we talked about her last time, but I could be wrong. But we've decided we loved it so much in Chicago that we're going to go see her again in Salt Lake and visit our friend Sarah. So shout out to Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. But honestly, it's a great show. So I think there are still tickets available, and it was one of my favorite concerts I've been to in years.
Tell them where our seats are.
We're going to be pit people.
There's a responsibility that comes with it.
That's the first thing I said. I was like, we're pit people now. We need cute outfits.
Yes.
We need to make an effort. We cannot just show up in jeans and a t-shirt.
We
have
need
to
glitter
think about
freckles.
This. Glitter freckles! We need glitter freckles.
Yeah, we're going to go all out. We should take a picture and
it looks so silly.
No.
But we'll take a picture and we'll post it.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know where, but somewhere. People can see it.
On the
But
web.
I'm so excited. We're so excited. So we'll do that in a month and a half. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not even. Maybe even closer.
So excited. So we are going to be talking today. We're just going to do kind of a quick overview on some things that Tyler from
Teen Mom
talked about on a recent live. And so we just wanted to kind of go through, and honestly, there was plenty that I completely agree with, and there were some things that I feel like I have a bit of feedback on, and you know, we just thought let's
and
talk
we
about
did
it.
a podcast about
Teen Mom. Yep.
About kind of the drama going on with them currently with Carly.
Yeah.
Who's their daughter.
And Tyler was gracious enough to respond to one of our clips.
Shout out to Tyler.
Yeah, shout out to one of our clips on TikTok. So that was actually really cool, and I love hearing other people's perspectives and both sides, and we're always here to listen. So thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, one of the things that Tyler talked a bunch about was open adoption, which is what he has with Carly and Brandon and Teresa.
Yeah.
And so, Katie, why don't you tell us what open adoption
Well,
is?
to recap, so open adoption just means that you have agreed to continue to have communication with the biological family after birth and placement happen. So it's kind of an ongoing relationship, a continuation of that relationship, which I agree is so beneficial to child. There have been books and studies that back me up on this, but just as an adopted child, I agree as well. So
it's the most common,
fan.
at least with our companies, it's the most common post-placement.
Yeah, about 42% of our adoptions last year were open adoptions. 39% were semi-open. So over 81% of the adoptions that we did were situations where expectant women were wanting that continued communication, and we're happy to support that. And of course, if you've had a traumatic situation or for whatever reason, if you don't want that, we're also happy to respect that as well. So we do still offer closed adoption for our expectant moms also.
Yeah, about 19% are closed.
Yeah.
So that's still a choice.
Absolutely. So that is what open adoption is.
He also talked a lot about a 5-year clause, which have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised by this. And honestly, he mentioned that they wish they had read the fine print and was warning people. And honestly, that's a very fair warning if that is in the fine print. I have never personally seen that, but that doesn't mean it's not true. I'm sure he's being truthful about that. So in my understanding, it would be an 18-year agreement, not a 5-year agreement. So definitely, I guess, look for that if you are in a state where there is a legally binding agreement. There are many states that don't even have a legally binding agreement at all. So it would be more of a verbal agreement between the adoptive family and the biological family. But I personally have never run into the 5-year limit. I thought that was surprising.
Yeah, I have not heard of that either. I don't know. I mean, his adoption did take place a while ago. I mean, she's a teen now. So.
Yeah, things change. That's totally true. And it could have been a quirk that the attorney specifically had written in, or it could have been something that state does, but I have never heard that. So definitely, I guess, worth looking out for. So we love some good advice for parents to arm themselves with going into a situation like that, for sure, on both sides.
Well, yeah, and one good thing that I like about Tyler talking about this is it's like it's like just knowing that there's somebody out there that has a platform that's talking about this, so it can bring awareness for everyone just to pay attention to what they're agreeing to, and really being able to handle the communication for however long it happens.
Yeah, well, and it's really such an emotionally overwhelming time to be signing serious legal documentation. So, I mean, it's always a good reminder, I think, to make sure you're reading what you're signing.
Well, especially when you're so young, because Tyler and Caitlin were really young.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that's a bit of a failure on the attorney's part because I feel like the attorney should have been explaining it to them. The attorney, even though it's hired by the adoptive parents, is truly representing the birth family who are about to lose all of their rights. So they should be advocating for the bio family when it comes to signing this kind of stuff.
Somebody definitely should have, especially since they didn't have support from their family members to step in and kind of be a second person reading over things.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's kind of a shame. And I know that, with open adoption, I think we've seen, especially over the years with our own families, it can become very fluid. It's not surprising when it changes, ebbs and flows. People are in different spots in their own life. You have families that have more capability, less capability. We have families that get stationed overseas and have to explain to the bio family that, might be a little bit of a hiatus if they're okay with that. We have sometimes biological family members who are not in a great place in their life.
Yeah.
So
being able to navigate those challenges for sure. Because 18 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. And things can change. And with the child, with what the child may want. Because I know we talked about that last time is this what Carly wanted? Is this not what she wanted? So, as a child gets older, they may want to change.
Yeah, well, and we were chatting about this before, and did you say, I thought you had said that you saw something where they were saying if this was something that Carly didn't want, that they would absolutely respect it. And so
they did. Tyler did say in one of his lives that if this was something that Carly wanted, but they didn't have any clarification on that. Communication just stopped. So they don't know if it's Brandon and Teresa wanting that, or if Carly came out and said, I no longer want to have a relationship and open adoption with you. And they would respect that. They did say that, which I thought was really interesting.
I do think, and I don't mean to play devil's advocate or be argumentative, I think an inherent quality of an adopted child is to be a people pleaser. I think we are, I don't know why. If you read, and I know I talk about this all the time, but if you read The Primal Wound, it talks about how there can be so many people pleasing tendencies. And I know I was like that, but didn't really understand that about myself or understand that it was linked to my own adoption until I was an adult, but it really influenced a lot of my behaviors, towards the people in my life. So
that's interesting.
Well, because I just never wanted I remember I just never wanted anyone to be disappointed in me or upset with me. And it's still really difficult for me to kind of deal with that.
It makes perfect sense when you hear it, but it's not a conclusion that I would come up with on my own.
Well, same. And I'm a pretty self-aware person, but that one was kind of like a moment, a light bulb moment for me. So he also talked about agencies and how he personally is pretty strongly against them.
Well, he worked with an agency with their adoption, and he was saying that you should go with a lawyer instead. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I obviously work for an adoption agency, so I am kind of pro.
Yeah, I'm biased.
I'm biased. I think that there's a lot of protection in working for an agency.
I 100% agree.
And not just with the adoptive parent, but I also think with the expectant mom. I think both people are supported and guided in a way that you wouldn't get working with an attorney, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's exceptions to every rule. I've heard of some really great attorneys but even the attorneys I've heard of that are really great kind of have formed a semblance of an agency anyway, so it's still the same idea.
Right.
And with us, you're still going to be working directly with an attorney once it comes time for legal services, so you're not really missing out on that. So I'm wondering, and I don't know what state they did their adoption in.
I can't remember.
But if they weren't working with an attorney at all, I mean, maybe at an agency state, I don't know.
The attorney was never shown in any of the Teen Mom clips, but I'm certain that there would have to be some sort of...
Yeah, because no matter what, there's always going to be an attorney involved. I feel like with an agency, there's protection, though, truly on both sides. And, one of the things that I also am such a fan of is support. And I feel like we're so big on support. And so are a lot of other great agencies. We work directly with Better Me for free mental health services for the people that are working with us. And I think that that's such an important thing. And that's something you might not get with an
the
attorney.
Resources afterwards. So, we work with On Your Feet that provide post-adoption peer-based groups, too. So I think... that's really important for both the adoptive parents, because the support doesn't doesn't stop just because.
Right. And
you've
it's not
adopted.
so simple as just working with an attorney, because many attorneys also don't have the kind of wide reach that agencies have. So the problem is that you could be waiting a very long time.
And for adoptive parents, that can be really difficult, especially
Yeah.
if you live in a state that also doesn't even have a ton of opportunity, because not every
Right.
state has the same level of opportunity as others. So.
Exactly. But this is why I tell everyone to do their research too, because you have to figure out what's right for you. But I think there are a lot of benefits to working with an agency, any agency, not just ours. So I think that's definitely something that shouldn't be villainized. I think
there's different
because
paths for everybody
one person has a
because-
negative experience, in his opinion.
That is correct. I agree with that.
Yeah, but I'm sorry that happened, or that you feel that way about your experience. I'd feel the same way if anyone felt that way about working with us. That's not what we want. That's not what we want the experience coming out of it to feel like, basically.
Yeah, and I know we already talked a little bit about it, but post-placement agreements aren't legally binding. But in some states they are. So it really depends on the state that you're...
Yeah, and working with an agency or an attorney isn't really going to
Not gonna change
influence that. And honestly, the sad part, and this always makes me a little bit sad for expectant parents, is that choosing an open adoption and signing a legally binding agreement in a state that allows it is so difficult to enforce, because not everybody has resources. So if the adoptive family doesn't follow through on what they've said they're going to follow through on, their only legal recourse, the expectant family or the bio family, would be to take them to court, and that costs a lot of money. And a lot of people can't afford to do that. So even though they're in violation of an agreement, there's just not a lot of legal recourse. And that's, I think, not the way it should be, personally.
No, I agree. So a lot of them are left feeling a little helpless in that situation, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about maintaining connections for the child's sake. So I know we talked about this when we talked about Tyler and the whole situation before, and how important it is for everyone to just kind of do what they say they're going to do, show up for the child, which is what you're doing. But there are situations that may make those connections change.
Sure. Well, and I think from a child's perspective too, it's so respectful to follow through on what you say you're going to follow through on, because it shows your child that you have respect for their biological family. And so I feel like not following through with that or cutting off communication, kind of terrible unless you have a really good reason for it, because you can always protect the child at the same time. Like, that is you're right. You're their parents. Like, protect your child as much as you need to. But at the same time, follow through on what your promises are, unless you are actually afraid for your family in some way.
Well, and I get that it's hard because you want boundaries to be respected.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like the only thing that I know you mentioned this when we were talking about it earlier, that if the family is kind of backed into a corner and feels like they need to stop communication because what they're asking for isn't being respected, it's understandable, but maybe not forever. And maybe still leaving the door open for communication. And I think it's important with any relationship, having communication, establishing those boundaries, and maybe even before you go into it, so that everyone understands what that expectation is. But I know it's hard doing that, and then years later situations change. But.
Yeah. Well, and for an example, so this happened actually recently. This is maybe a month ago. We had a birth mom reach out to us and say that she had been incarcerated and that she had recently served her time and she was done, but she didn't have any of the same contact information. So she had lost the contact information for the adoptive family.
Okay.
And she just wanted to get it back. So we just reached out to that family, and they were so excited because they had been really worried about her. And so they're now back in touch with each other. And I just thought that was so wonderful all around. Like, everyone was so happy to hear from everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
The family was understanding and kind about it. And they were just able to pick up where they left off.
That's so funny because that actually just happened not that long
Really?
ago. Yeah, we had an expectant mom or birth mom that lost.
So angry. I don't talk about post-placement that often.
Yeah,
So.
but the birth mom had just lost her phone, lost all, obviously everything's in, our lives are in our phones now.
Yeah.
So she reached out and she was like, I lost communication with, the
That's so
adoptive
funny.
family. Yeah, and I reached out and they were so excited. They're like, we think about her every day. We talk about her every day. And we were hoping that this would happen. And so they were like, here's all of our information.
Because you want to be respectful, right? So I think probably from their perspective, they thought, if this isn't something that she's wanting anymore, I am understanding of that.
Well, and
Or,
she didn't have the same contact information either. So even if they were reaching
they're
out,
sending out nothing.
right.
And
It's going into the abyss.
Even with an open adoption, you are not legally required to give out personal information like your last name or your address. So it's not so simple all the time to just
look it up.
find them online. Yeah, exactly.
That's so true.
Well, I think that's all the points that we really had to cover on.
Those are the main points that the biggest takeaways.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how it'll play out. It's riveting.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you hope that
you taught me all about it in the one podcast we did, and now I'm kind of interested. I mean, I think you don't get to see these kinds of scenarios play out in the public eye very often, and as an adopted kid, especially, I'm like interested.
Tyler and Caitlin were always my favorite person on Teen Mom because I thought that they made a choice that most people don't make, especially when they were younger, because a lot of people had family support at that time because they're younger. But I think it's just so interesting because you see adoption in movies, but you don't always get to see it. And it ended up being so popular that we've gotten to see it all the way through. Like they've gotten to document visits, and it was only supposed to be that one episode. And
I mean, honestly, I would say it's the most educational thing on TV when it comes to open adoption because there's just nothing else that portrays adoption in any way. I would say the closest that I've seen is maybe like This Is Us, the one episode with Kate.
Yeah, that one's actually a pretty good,
they did a really nice job. Yeah. And then honestly, Monica and Chandler on Friends is not that off base.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
It is. It's nice. And obviously not every situation is exactly the same. Just because you're seeing one situation play out, that's not like the advertisement for open adoption, right? Whether it was successful or not,
into
right?
adoption. Yeah. So every situation is so different.
Yeah.
So.
But it is really fun to get to see it play out. And I just hope that everything works out and that Carly is supported.
Absolutely.
In it. Gosh. How it's always so nice, Katie, to be able to sit down.
It's like armchair talks.
Best friend combos.
I know. He's the best. I love getting to do our potty together. I'm just trying it out.
Yeah, we'll come up with better ones next time.
Do better.
Well, that one may not be the one.
Listen,
we tried it on.
Just throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
It didn't. It didn't. That's okay. All right.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us. And if anyone has any feedback or comments or opinions, we love to hear them.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.